Welcome to the Pierce County Assessor-Treasurer's Office Levy Workshop. This presentation is provided as an aid for taxing districts in Pierce County. Please contact the Levies Department of the Pierce County Assessor-Treasurer's Office for questions pertaining to your type of district. In this workshop, we will identify the due date requirements of districts, what documents are required enabling a district to levy, the limitations of a levy, such as the calculation increases, the maximum statutory rate, the $5.90 aggregate, and the 1% constitutional limits. We will also discuss how a tax code area is formed and what happens to a district when changes occur in a tax code area. We will identify the definition of banked capacity and discuss how to obtain or utilize bank capacity. Demonstrations of calculating the increase of a district's highest lawful levy and a district's levy limit will be shown. We will identify the different types of lid lifts, and finally, the calculation of added revenue from an annexation for the first year will be explained. Important dates for districts to remember following first in the calendar year is August 1st. District boundaries must be established, and there are a few exceptions. In order for the boundary to be considered final, either the election has been certified or a final approval has been issued from the Boundary Review Board. September 15th is the date that preliminary values are sent to the districts. This is also the date that the assessor certifies new construction value to the Board of Equalization and the Department of Revenue. November 30th is the most important date for districts to remember. A levy certification and approved ordinance or resolution must be filed with the Assessor-Treasurer's Office and the Pierce County Council's Office. The Department of Revenue is very insistent on this date due to the statute. Levy certifications may be amended in December after districts receive their final values. Let's begin by reviewing the various limitations of a regular levy. The first would be the limit factor. It is the percentage increase of a district's highest lawful levy. The simple act of passing a resolution or ordinance allows the district's highest lawful levy to increase. A district with a population of less than 10,000 is allowed an increase of 1%. Districts with a population of more than 10,000 are allowed the lesser of the rate of inflation, also known as the IPD, or 1%. This is not the same as the percentage of increase that is identified in the resolution or ordinance. The limit factor increase can be found in line A of your levy limit worksheet. The next limitation is the actual dollar and percent increase over the prior year's levy that has been authorized within the ordinance or resolution. Both the dollar amount and the percentage stated is a limit to the levy. If the dollar amount is missing the cents, then the levy is limited. If the percentage is not rounded up, then the levy is limited. Keep in mind that the purpose of a resolution or ordinance is to identify the need of increase that is allowed by the limit factor increase over the actual amount that the district levied last year. The resolution or ordinance does not identify additional revenue from new construction and increased state assessed value. It also does not identify any administrative refunds that the district intends to re-levy. The levy certification identifies the entire amount a district intends to levy. The regular levy line includes any increase that is allowed by the limit factor, plus additional revenue from new construction and any increase in state assessed value. The full amount of the regular levy to a district can be found in line G of your levy limit worksheet. The refund levy line identifies the amount of administrative refunds the district wants to re-levy for. The amount available to your district can be found in the middle of line H on your levy limit worksheet. The levy certification identifies all the revenue to be levied, including new construction, state assessed value increases, and refunds. The fourth limit is the statutory dollar rate limit. The sum of the regular levy and any administrative refunds is divided into the assessed value. The calculated rate cannot exceed a specific maximum rate depending upon the type of district. The $5.90 aggregate limit is the sum of certain regular levies within a tax code area. The process of prorationing when the limit is exceeded will be discussed later in this video. And finally, the 1% constitutional limit. After any prorationing has occurred during the $5.90 limit, all regular levies within a tax code area cannot exceed the effective rate of 1% of true and fair market value. When the IPD is more than 1%, the passage of a resolution or ordinance allows the highest lawful levy of the district to increase by 1%. This is the limit factor. When the IPD is less than 1%, districts with a population over 10,000 are required to pass a second resolution to establish substantial need to increase the limit factor up to 1%. The amounts, both dollars and percent, that are authorized within the resolution or ordinance limits the revenue the district can collect for the next tax year. This will also allow a district to bank their levy capacity. These amounts do not affect the limit factor that is used to increase the highest lawful levy. The only effect that an ordinance or resolution has to the limit factor is if a district fails to submit or pass an ordinance or resolution. By law, the highest lawful levy is not increased by the limit factor, and the district will only be allowed to levy last year's actual amount levied, plus any additional revenue from new construction or state assessed value increases, when there is no authorized ordinance or resolution in place. Looking at an example of the limit factor increase that is allowed for District A. District A has a highest lawful levy of $2 million. This is also the actual amount that the district levied in the prior year. When the district passes a resolution, the highest lawful levy is allowed to increase by 1%, assuming that the IPD is greater than 1%. The starting point of the calculation of the allowable levy for the following year is $2,020,000. The district's additional revenue from new construction and increase in state assessed value is then added to this amount. Added revenue from the new construction is calculated using the district's prior year's levy rate multiplied by the new construction value that is divided by 1,000. Any increase over last year's value of state assessed utilities is also multiplied by the district's prior year's levy rate to compute the additional revenue. In this example, the additional revenue calculated for the new construction is $50,000, and the increase of the state assessed value results additional revenue of $10,000. Both amounts are added to the 1% increase of the highest lawful levy calculation of $2,020,000. The sum of all three calculations is $2,080,000, and it is the district's regular property tax limit. If the district is not limited by their statutory maximum rate, the amount becomes the district's highest lawful levy, regardless of the dollar amount that they have authorized for collection within their ordinance or resolution. When an ordinance or resolution is not passed or submitted by November 30th, the district does not receive the limit factor increase to their highest lawful levy. In this example, District B does not pass or submit a resolution or ordinance. District B has a highest lawful levy of $2 million, just as District A had. However, District B collected a lesser amount of actual levy in the prior year of $1,950,000. Perhaps the district had chose to bank their levy capacity the previous year. Because District B did not pass a resolution, the allowable levy they can collect is limited. This also impacts their highest lawful levy. District B will not be allowed the increase of the limit factor to their highest lawful levy because they did not pass a resolution. District B can only collect the amount that they collected last year, $1,950,000, and the additional revenue from their new construction and increase in the state assessed value. Assuming that the district is not limited by the statutory maximum rate, District B's regular property tax levy is limited to $2,010,000. This will also be the district's highest lawful levy. Although Districts A and B highest lawful levies and additional revenue amounts were the same, District B will be forced to collect $70,000 less because they did not pass and submit their resolution or ordinance by November 30th. District B has also caused their highest lawful levy for future years to be substantially less than that of District A. The resolution or ordinance plays a double role in reference to a district's levy. For smaller districts with a population of under 10,000, the resolution or ordinance must be passed by a majority of the district's governing board. The highest lawful levy is allowed to increase by 1% when the resolution or ordinance is passed, regardless of the IPD. The authorized amount in the document, both the dollar and percent increase, can be less than that allowed by the limit factor increase of the highest lawful levy, allowing a district to bank their levy capacity. For larger districts over 10,000 in population, the resolution or ordinance must be passed by a majority of the district's governing board. The highest lawful levy is allowed an increase by the lesser of 1% or the IPD. The district can also bank their levy capacity by authorizing an amount in the document, dollar and percent, that is less than the amount allowed by the limit factor increase of the highest lawful levy. When the IPD is less than 1%, the district is able to pass a second resolution or ordinance demonstrating and stating the substantial need of the district to bring the limit factor increase up to 1%. This second resolution must be passed by a supermajority of the governing board. All district resolutions or ordinances must identify 3 items, and they are the total amount that the district levied in the prior year, which includes their administrative refunds, the dollar amount of increase that is needed over that total amount that was levied in the prior year, and the percent calculation for the additional dollar amount of increase over the total levied last year. Finally, the intent of the district must be clearly written within the document. The next limit to a levy is the authorized amount that is stated in the resolution or ordinance. Per law, a district's levy is always limited to the lesser calculation. Make sure that the dollar and percent increase stated within the resolution calculates correctly. Taking the example of District A, in order for the district to collect revenue at their highest levy capacity, District A's resolution or ordinance should state that an increase in property tax revenue from the previous year is required in the amount of $20,000, which is a percentage increase of 1% from the previous year's actual levy of $2 million. A district's ordinance or resolution identifies how much of the increase allowed from the limit factor increase that the district wants to authorize. Both the dollar and percent should represent the amount of increase over the prior year's actual levy in order to reach the amount allowed after applying the limit factor to the highest lawful levy. Remember, the law allows the highest lawful levy to increase by the limit factor of the lesser of 1% or the IPD when a resolution or ordinance is passed. The authorized amount that is stated within that resolution or ordinance is a separate limit and does not affect the highest lawful levy increase. The ordinance or resolution of a district controls two of the limits of the regular levy. Passing the resolution or ordinance allows the highest lawful levy to increase by the limit factor. The stated amount that is authorized within the resolution or ordinance is the next calculation of the allowable levy. The allowable levy of a district can collect is limited by both the dollar and percent that is authorized within the resolution or ordinance. Looking at the example at the bottom, the amount allowed by the limit factor increases to $10,504.39. This is more than last year's actual levy, and it is a 1.249% increase. It is suggested to round up both the dollars and percentage to avoid limiting the district in error. In the first scenario, the district will lose $504.39 even though the percent increase was rounded up. In the second scenario, the district will lose revenue due to the stated percent amount not being rounded up to 1.25%. If District B from the previous example passed a resolution, the limit factor increase would be allowed. Remember, the district only levied $1,950,000 last year. The difference of the amount that is allowed by the limit factor increase of their highest lawful levy and the amount that they actually levied last year equals $70,000. District B will state this dollar amount of increase in their resolution or ordinance if they intend to levy at their full capacity. This is a 3.6% increase over the amount that they actually levied last year. What are the steps to get these numbers? First, the district passes a resolution allowing the highest lawful levy of $2 million to increase by 1%, assuming that the IPD is more than 1%, equaling $2,020,000. The actual dollar amount levied last year is deducted from the increase of the highest lawful levy. This results the dollar increase that District B states in their resolution. The current year's allowable levy from the limit factor increase is divided by the prior year's actual amount that was levied to calculate the percentage of change. To double check District B's percentage increase, divide the dollar increase that is stated within the ordinance or resolution by last year's actual levy and move the decimal. The percent should equal the percentage of change that is stated within the ordinance or resolution. It is important to know that both the dollar and percent amounts stated within the resolution are calculated against last year's actual levied amount, and the district is limited to the lesser of the two calculations. Do not drop the cents from the dollar amount and round up the percentage to avoid limiting your district in error. In some cases, last year's actual amount levied will be more than the highest lawful levy of the district. This is because administrative and court-ordered refunds that were levied the previous year do not become part of a district's highest lawful levy that is carried forward to the next year. How does the resolution appear if District B had an actual levy last year that was more than the highest lawful levy? Again, when District B passes a resolution, the highest lawful levy is allowed to increase by the limit factor. For this example, we will assume that it is 1%. The allowable levy is still $2,020,000. The same steps apply to calculate the dollar and percent increase from last year's actual amount levied. However, this time the percentage increase will be less than 1%. Some points to remember when preparing your resolution. Passing a resolution allows your highest lawful levy to increase by the limit factor of the lesser of the IPD, or 1%. The amount that is allowed can be found in the calculation of line A of your levy limit worksheet. The amounts authorized in the resolution do not include your additional revenue from new construction and increased state assessed value. The district is identifying how much of the increase to the highest lawful levy is needed for the next levy cycle. The percent increase stated in the document will only be 1% when the prior year's actual levy was equal to the highest lawful levy. Last year's actual levy amount includes administrative refunds and must be stated in the ordinance or resolution. The dollar and percent increase over last year's actual amount levied must also be stated in the resolution. The intent of the district is clearly stated within the resolution. Along with the approved ordinance or resolution, a district must submit a levy certification. Blank forms are included in the preliminary packets that are mailed to the districts in September. The levy certification is another limit to the levy. This document identifies all revenue that the district intends to collect, including the additional revenue from new construction and increased state assessed values. A district can also re-levy for administrative refunds by identifying the levy amount on the levy certification form. In order for a district to levy at their full capacity, enter the amount found in line G on your levy limit worksheet in the line labeled Regular Levy of the certification form. Fire districts placing an amount into their reserve fund should also identify the dollar amount of the regular levy for reserves and label the amount as reserve. Include the amount of administrative refunds to levy on the line labeled Refund Levy. The amount available to your district is located on line H of the levy limit worksheet. The district is also responsible to list amounts needed for excess levies to meet next year's obligation in the line labeled Excess Levy. If the district has multiple excess levies, such as maintenance and operation and bond levies, please label each amount separately. Districts will be able to amend their levy certification after final values have been calculated and delivered to the districts in December. There are 2 documents that must be submitted by November 30th. Failure to submit these documents may limit a district's levy capabilities and future levying capacity. They are the resolution or ordinance and the levy certification. The documents must be submitted to both the Pierce County Council and to the Pierce County Assessor's Office. The preliminary information provided to districts in September will identify the allowable levy a district can collect for the following year. These values are preliminary amounts, and state-assessed values may not yet be available. The levy limit worksheet identifies the highest lawful levy and the limit factor increase. This calculation will be helpful to you when preparing your ordinance or resolution. The worksheet also contains the calculation of additional revenue from new construction and increased state assessed value. The preliminary value of the district is located at the top of line J. This value is subject to change until the Assessor-Treasurer's Office has calculated final values in December. The sample resolution or ordinance identifies the total amount the district levied in the prior year and calculates the dollar and percent increase that would equal the highest lawful levy. The levy limit worksheet identifies the total amount a district can levy, so let's break down the numbers a bit further. Line A is the calculation of the limit factor increase of the highest lawful levy. Lines B and C identify additional revenue from new construction and increased state assessed values. The values are listed on the top of the line. Last year's levy rate is the middle number, and the additional revenue is the bottom figure. Think of lines B and C as the district's catch-up levy for additional values that were not part of the prior year's assessment roll when the levy was calculated. If there are no annexations, line D lists the regular property tax levy limit. When the statutory maximum rate has not been exceeded, this amount now becomes the highest lawful levy. The figure will appear at the top of line A for next year's calculation. This amount is listed on the levy certification regular levy line when the district wants to levy at their full capacity and they are not limited by the maximum rate of the district. Lines E and F identify the rate to apply to an annexed property and the revenue from the value of the annexed area. Per statute, the district can only levy the annexed area at the same rate they would have levied had they not had the additional value of that area. The assessed value of the district without the annexed area is divided into the regular property tax limit that is found in line D. This results the rate of the district without the additional value of that annexed area. The rate is then multiplied by the value of the annexed area to calculate the amount of revenue that the district can have for the annexed area for the first year. Line G is the new levy limit when a district has annexed an area. The sum of lines D and F equal line G. Line G will also become the district's highest lawful levy if there are no rate limitations. Line H identifies the administrative refunds and court-ordered refunds. A district can choose to levy a portion or all of the administrative refund amount. However, court-ordered refunds must be re-levied. Districts that are affected by court-ordered refunds receive notification in the preliminary packet. If a district chooses to re-levy the administrative refunds, the dollar amount must be listed on the refund levy line of the levy certification form. Line I identifies the total levy that is controlled by the levy limit. This is the limit factor increase allowed to the highest lawful levy plus the additional revenue the district can have from new construction and increased state assessed value. It also includes any annexations and administrative refunds. When line I is divided by the value of the district, the rate cannot exceed a certain amount depending upon the type of district. This is the statutory maximum rate or rate limit. Regardless of the final levy limit calculation in line I, the rate limit listed in line J can never be exceeded. Line K identifies the total allowable levy to the district. The allowable levy is the lesser of all the limits that have been imposed to the district. Here are some common regular property taxing districts in Pierce County and the corresponding maximum rate. The state school rate is equally proportionate throughout the counties to ensure that taxpayers in one county are not paying more or less than their share compared to taxpayers in other counties. The county current expense levy includes earmarked funds for social services and veterans relief. A city annexed to a fire or library district can levy up to $3.60 minus the actual rate of the district they are annexed to. A fire protection district with no full-time paid employees or with a benefit assessment may levy up to $1. A fire protection district with at least one full-time paid employee is able to levy up to $1.50. When the fire district is also part of a regional fire protection service authority, the rate of the authority district is deducted from the rate of the fire protection district. The combined aggregate of regular taxing districts within a specified boundary, also known as a tax code area, cannot exceed $5.90. However, certain regular levies are not subject to this limit and therefore not included in the calculation. Those districts are listed here. A tax code area is a geographical area of a unique mix of one or more taxing districts that is established for the purpose of calculating, collecting, and distributing taxes. In Pierce County, these are commonly referred to as TCAs. When taxing district boundaries overlap, a polygon is formed containing a mix of various taxing districts. Let's begin with County A and add in a couple of school districts. Each boundary of a district creates a TCA. Notice how many different TCAs are created after adding only two more districts with overlapping boundaries. In this example, the library district has 5 different areas containing a unique mix of other districts also located within the library district boundaries. When new districts are created, the potential for exceeding the $5.90 limit increases. Using the prior example and adding 2 regular taxing districts, there are 12 additional TCAs created. If all these districts were at their maximum rate, district number 11 would exceed the $5.90 limit. The fire district rate is $1.50. The library rate is 50 cents. The city is at $3.60 less the fire and library rate it is annexed to, leaving a rate of $1.60. The Metro Park District rate is 75 cents. School districts are excess levies and not included in the $5.90 calculation. The total aggregate of TCA number 11 is $6.15. In the example, the Metro Park rate will be reduced by 25 cents. The junior districts are the first to receive a reduction when the $5.90 aggregate limit has been exceeded. If there are multiple districts within the same level requiring the reduction, the statute provides a proration factor to equally reduce each district's rate. Some junior districts are allowed an ability to protect a portion of their levy that is subject to prorationing. Fire districts have a unique option to protect the second and third 50 cents of their levy. These are the most vulnerable to reduction. The ability to protect these levies allows up to 25 cents to be levied outside of the $5.90 limit to a maximum of $6.15. Legislation passed in 2011 now also allows a flood control zone district to protect up to 25 cents outside of the $5.90. To determine what districts will be affected by the $5.90 limit, a calculation worksheet is completed. The worksheet can be found on the Department of Revenue's website. Fill in the calculated rates of the districts within a TCA in the first column and total the rates within each level. Subtract $5.90 from the total in Level 7 and enter the figure in the second column on the line labeled Remaining Capacity. Level 7 contains the senior districts that are most protected. Next, subtract the total rates in column 1 of Level 6 from the figure in the Remaining Capacity line of Level 7 and enter the amount in the second column on the line labeled Remaining Capacity within Level 6. Continue this process until the total of a level exceeds the remaining capacity of the previous level. If more than one district is within this level, the districts will have their levies reduced proportionately by calculating a proration factor and applying it to the rates within the level. When the balance of remaining capacity in a level reaches 0, any levy of any junior district in a lower level will be eliminated. View the level numbers as the order of elimination. Districts in Level 1 are the first to be eliminated, and districts in Level 7 are the most protected. Some points of the $5.90 aggregate limit to remember are: voter-approved lid lifts are not excess and are included in the prorationing. If prorationing occurs, it is to the entire district, not just the properties within the TCA that exceeded the $5.90. Districts with the option to protect a portion of their levy during the $5.90 limit calculation will not have the same protection during the 1% constitutional limit calculation. Multiple TCAs that exceed the $5.90 limit increases the risk of exceeding the 1% constitutional limit, and districts that were not included in the $5.90 limit are subject to the 1% constitutional limit. The simple calculation of the 1% constitutional limit of true and fair value would be $10 per $1,000 of assessed value. However, delays in revaluation cycles require the rate to be adjusted. The 1% constitutional limit affects all the districts that were subject to the $5.90 and also the districts that were not included in the $5.90 limit calculation, including state schools, EMS, and conservation future levies. The 1% limit affects more taxing districts and has more calculation levels. There are 15 levels in the 1% constitutional limit, whereas the $5.90 limit only has 7 levels. The 1% limit also takes place after any reduction due to prorationing under the $5.90 limit. Therefore, a district that was reduced by the $5.90 limit could also be affected by the 1% constitutional limit. Because the assessment date is as of January 1st, the assessed values may not equal the current market value when the 1% constitutional limit is calculated. The effective rate is adjusted by the highest ratio for either personal or real property of the county to arrive at a rate that is equal to 1% of the current market. The ratio is determined by the Department of Revenue's annual ratio audit of counties. This formula shows how the effective rate is calculated to equal 1% of the current market value. In the example, after any prorationing or reduction from the $5.90 limit, the sum of the county's regular levies, not including a port or public utility district, cannot exceed $10.20. The 1% constitutional limit is only applied to regular levies and does not include excess levies such as voter-approved public schools, bonds, or maintenance and operation levies. Some things to remember about the 1% constitutional limit are that levels 1 and 3 through 7 apply to the districts that were part of the $5.90 aggregate limit. The lower level numbers are the most vulnerable to reduction, just as in the $5.90 limit calculation. Level 2 applies to the fire levy that was protected during the $5.90 limit. The districts that were subject to the $5.90 appear in levels 8 through 14, allowing a bit more protection this time. Let's discuss bank capacity. The background of bank capacity is for the purpose of districts to authorize a levy that is less than the maximum they are allowed without being penalized in future years. Prior to 1986, districts were subject to a use or lose scenario. Now a district can be fiscally conservative without losing their levy capacity in following years. Some common questions regarding bank capacity are: what is banked levy capacity? Banked levy capacity is the difference between the highest lawful levy that could have been made and the actual levy that the district imposed. Does bank capacity compound each year? No. However, a district's highest lawful levy is protected when appropriate resolutions are passed, and it continues as a basis for the following year's levy limit calculation. If my district levies $200,000 less, or banks that amount in 1 year, is the same dollar amount available to the district the following year? Not always. The amount of revenue banked for 1 year does not guarantee that the district will have the same amount or more the following year. The values of the district, both new construction and state assessed, and the taxable value vary each year, affecting the levy limit. Do taxing districts need voter approval to use their bank capacity? Not at all. Bank capacity is the unused levy authority from a prior levy limit calculation, and as long as the district request is within the current year's levy limit and the appropriate resolutions were passed, voter approval is not required. Does the $5.90 limit apply when bank capacity is utilized? Yes, the entire rate of the district is subject to $5.90 limit, and it is a separate limit that is imposed to the district. When a district utilizes their bank capacity, their calculated rate is higher than a previous year. Districts choosing to use their bank levy capacity should also consider possible impacts to junior districts within the same boundaries. In this example, the County Road District has an authorized levy with a rate of $1.65. However, the levy limit available to the district equals a rate of $1.95. If the road district levied at their maximum allowed using their banked capacity, the $5.90 limit would be exceeded. The Park and Rec Service Area District levy would be reduced by 13 cents. Consider the impact of the reduction in revenue compared to your district's value. Divide the assessed value by 1,000 and multiply it by 13 cents. This would result the amount of lost revenue to your district for that year. Another question is, how would a district compose the resolution when their intent is to bank their levy capacity? First of all, we need to know the size of the district and the IPD to answer the question. If the IPD is over 1%, any district, regardless of size, can pass a resolution allowing their highest lawful levy to increase by the limit factor of 1%. The stated dollar and percent increase over last year's actual levy in the resolution will be less than the levy that is allowed by the limit factor. This would bank their levy capacity. If the IPD is less than 1% and the district has a population over 10,000, then a second resolution establishing the substantial need is needed for the limit factor to increase up to 1%, and it must be passed by a supermajority of the governing board. However, the district will then approve a dollar amount and percent increase over the prior year's actual levy that equals less than the increase that was allowed by the limit factor. The district should also state the reasoning for banking their levy capacity within a substantial need resolution. A district should always clearly identify the intent of the district within their ordinance or resolution. How should a district compose their resolution when the intent is to utilize their bank levy capacity? In order for a district to use their bank capacity, the resolution should state the dollar and percent increase over last year's actual levy to equal the current year's allowable levy that is controlled by the limit factor. Make sure you have reviewed all limitations applied to the levy calculation, such as the rate limitation, which may actually reduce the total amount the district can levy for that year. Discussing lid lifts and identifying the types of lid lifts. There are various types of lid lifts. The length of time of a lid lift can be 1 to 6 years, and a lid lift can be either temporary or permanent. Both the single and multiple year lid lifts require approval by a majority of the district voters. However, there are slightly different ballot measure provisions if the lift were to be for a single year or a multiple year. A single year lid lift requires approval of the voters at either a special or general election, whereas a multiple year lid lift must be approved during a primary or general election. The ballot proposition for both must identify the rate to be used for the first year. However, the multiple year lift must also include the specific index or limit factor to calculate the remaining years. The multiple year lift must also state the specific time frame up to 6 years and the specific purpose of the lift. A lid lift can never exceed the district's maximum statutory rate. A permanent lid lift results in the final levy amount of the lift increasing the district's highest lawful levy that is carried forward in subsequent years after the lift has expired. A temporary lift only increases the district's highest lawful levy carried forward during the term of the lift. During this time, a pure levy is calculated as though the lift did not occur for each year of the lift. At the termination of the lid lift, the starting point for calculating the limit factor increase reverts back to the highest lawful levy of the pure levy that was calculated, as though the lift had never occurred. Some other common questions each of the districts have are, what percent did my district's value go up or down, and when will the district receive preliminary levy calculations with their preliminary values? May 31st is the deadline for county assessors to complete the revaluation process of the assessor rolls. Shortly after this date, Pierce County Assessor's Office publishes several revaluation reports on their website. These reports will identify the percent increase or decrease of the property currently on the assessor rolls. Please keep in mind that the reports do not reflect any new construction value or state assessed values for that year. Per statute, the assessor's office certifies and adds new construction value to the tax rolls by September 15th. Once this has taken place, the taxing districts are notified of their preliminary levy calculation and their preliminary assessed values. There are useful resources for districts found on the Pierce County Assessor-Treasurer's website. The history of revaluation reports identifying the percentage of value change by both cities and school districts can be found in the revaluation reports. Also, tax and value reports are published at the completion of each levy cycle. Districts can also find blank forms for both the levy certification and a sample resolution or ordinance on the Washington State Department of Revenue's website. The Department of Revenue also provides publications by subject matter regarding ballot measure requirements, special notices pertaining to changes in laws that affect property taxes, and procedures for districts regarding their resolution or ordinance. This concludes the Levy Workshop. Thank you for your attendance.